To talk about the silent war in Congo, we're joined by journalist in Goma in the eastern DRC, Reagan Mwanaweka, and a news anchor at NTV Uganda, Priscilla, Regina, Nalwogo. Very good afternoon to you both. I appreciate your time. Now, Reagan, allow me to start off with you. You're in Goma. You've recently participated in the election. Walk us through what that process was like, particularly, and I suppose also give us some insight into what it is that the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo are going to the polls for, specifically when you take a look at the amount of suffering, particularly due to war, that they're all going through.
So, at this moment, the situation is a bit trying. People went to vote, as you said. On Saturday, today, again, people are going to vote. They have extended votes till today in the Lubero and some parts because they weren't able to vote the 20th of this month. So, from this moment in Goma, where I am, the situation is calm. People are just working. Yesterday and yesterday, but one people have been voting. So at this moment, we are still waiting for the results of the elections.
Talk to us about the experience for you when you went to vote. Was it a peaceful experience? Did the polls open on time? What was the atmosphere like?
It wasn't easy for me, even for others. As a journalist, I didn't have the accreditations, but even for those who had accreditations, they had through many things. For example, look, having your name where you're going to vote wasn't easy for people, for adults, for people who couldn't read, because it wasn't so easy for them to vote, even while you are voting. For others, it wasn't easy to use that machine that was helping them to vote, because there is some people who didn't go to school to know how to use those things like electrical machines, because the DR Congo used the electrical machine to vote. So it wasn't really easy. Others came in the early morning, but the bureau wasn't open. They waited for like 5 hours, even 10 hours, close. Normally, we could close the bureau at 7 p.m. Unfortunately, people went till even 2 they went till 10 p.m. for voting. So it wasn't really easy for others. Even in the nights, people were voting. Sometimes electrical current shut down. It wasn't really easy for us to vote that day.
Priscilla, as a neighbor of the Democratic Republic of Congo, what is coming through your vines? What have you been able to pick up about this election?
Well, thank you so much, Hugo. And of course, relating to my brother Reagan, first of all, I would say congratulations to Reagan and our neighbors, the Democratic Republic of Congo. Why do I say that? Because they have then been given a second opportunity to have a peaceful or relatively peaceful transition of power yet again, something that has sort of not really been a realistic issue for them since they got independence from Belgium in 1960. And so for them to have had one in 2018, of course it had challenges there. You do have President Kabila then coming out to contest the results of the 2018 election and choosing to go to the courts to have that decision made. And in January, the courts did decide that it was the incumbent, Felix Tshisekedi, who had won the elections at that time. And so for 5 years, you can see that at least they have tried to rebuild Congo as far as political stability is concerned. Negating the other facts, of course, you do have the militia groups that continue to disturb the impoverished area. But nevertheless, for me, for them to go to the polls yet again in a manner, regardless of the disturbances and the issues that Reagan has mentioned, I believe those are not exclusive to Congo. We had our own election here in Uganda in 2021, and we still had pretty much the same issues. We were trying to go digital with the electoral process, and so some machines would get to the area and they're not functioning. He has talked about the illiteracy levels of some people. We equally had that challenge here in Uganda, and it only went ahead to show us that civic education which is meant to be like a continuous systematic provision of information and aiding all citizens to have effective participation in democratic society, still continues to be challenged, which again, for me, I would see it as something that the Electoral Commission there can actually work and build on in these next 5 years, to be able to then have a better turn up of voters and not having those challenges as far as illiteracy is concerned. So overall, for me, I would say it's a positive thing that they are choosing to have democracy on an electoral level, and one that you can see that they are trying very much to make it as convenient as possible, as smooth as possible. I mean, which countries do you know, especially in Africa, where you have leaders who desire to stay so long in power, do you see the Electoral Commission giving a leniency of extension? They gave the extension to Thursday. Now Reagan says that up to today, there's some people who are still going to the polls. Now that shows you that there is willingness to ensure that there's democracy and a transition process that is smoothened as much as possible. Thank you.
Regan, I'd like us to focus a little bit on those opposition presidential hopefuls that have spoken out against the election and are calling for a rerun. In the context of what are they offering the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo? Will be the first part of the question. And the second part is, in the time that President Tshisekedi has been in power, what has he done to alleviate the suffering of the Congolese people? I mean, when we take a look at that documentary that we watched a few minutes ago, the issues are all singular in that it is multiple instances of women being raped. Women, in fact, the populace of DRC has gone from a situation where it was life as normal, you know, where people would farm, they would go out and be able to collect firewood and carry about their business. But none of that is the reality for many of them for several years now.
So they say that the stakes are really very high to evaluate how President Tshisekedi run the country. Especially about female, as I understood the documentary, that's the real reality. The female are not really living easier life here in the Democratic Republic of Congo. As you understood in the documentary, at this year there are women still dying because they want to give a baby, to get birth a baby. So it's really very hard. Some of them are still stigmatized. So I can say that there wasn't really a great work for the power to help female to have good conditions in the country.
Priscilla, again, coming back to you as a neighbour, one of the things is that the Rwandan national government has been implicated in supporting the M23 rebels and obviously causing great instability in the DRC, something that they continually deny. Your reaction to those sentiments, just how much involvement does Rwanda have in the success of the M23 rebels in that ongoing instability?
Well, Hugo, your question is quite interesting because while we look at it in present-day times of diplomatic relations between the two countries, you also have to factor in history, which history does give you an indication of migration. You have some people that migrated all the way south of Africa into East Africa. You do have the Bantus that come down from South Zambia into Rwanda, then into Uganda, into Congo. And so the same does apply in terms of migration for the people that end up being in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Therefore, when it comes to observation of then those kinds of migrations, trying to settle in within a particular piece of land, you then get the picture of what is happening presently, connecting it to probably best case scenario right now is the Israel-Hamas war that we are seeing. It all comes down to history and a group of people having settled in one region and claiming that that is their rightful ownership, or it's supposed to be their place. and then, Native saying, no, you don't belong here. And so that conflict rises partly because of the history of migration, people moving to different parts of Africa and resettling. And therefore, a group may be trying to regain authority over a certain territory. Yes, having been, the link being that they migrated all the way from Rwanda doesn't necessarily reflect the fact that they're being directly supported or influenced by Rwanda for that matter. And it also is quite a tricky one because these are two countries that are currently part of the East African community. DRC just recently this year received its instruments of ratification into the East African community, which ideally was a good move. And in relation to that, you do have the East African community having had its standby forces, the regional forces, to help with the militia groups, M23 being, of course, the largest of them all, and the Allied Democratic Forces, of which Uganda has had to, go battle to battle with the ADF for us. I think you are reminded of an incident that we had in the other half of the year, where you do have the ADF having attacked a school in Bondwe, and it was a very, very terrible incident for us here in Uganda. So many lives were lost, especially students' lives, over 30 lives having been lost. And so while you want to look at present relation between the two countries, and again, over the past 365 days, there's just been a lot of loggerheads between President Kagame and President Tshisekedi over that particular issue, to the extent that it has marred the diplomatic relations the two countries have. You do have, the ambassador and the embassy Rwanda to Congo having been forced to evacuate. And Congo to Rwanda, so it's something that is been a pressure and has actually influenced a lot of the politics leading into the elections. You do have President Kagame having been accused of perhaps using through the M23 to destabilize the country so that it then doesn't have to have the elections, or is pushed to the place of extending the elections to another time altogether. But those things in the corridor, and at the end of the day, again, elections are meant to give or to remind a nation that they do have the power and the authority to realign themselves, especially as far as the internal governance is concerned. Peace, stability, and security are very paramount for countries such as Congo itself. You get to see, and I don't know, maybe Reagan can tell us what has been the actual environment and atmosphere as far as some of these militia groups east of DRC have been as they drew closer to the elections. Because from an outsider's point of view, you get to see that there's been not minimal, but at least not as much as it has been for the other part of 2023. And so it's a place where you get to see that, yes, there's the broken relationship between Rwanda and Congo, but at the same time, through this elective process, you do have and see an opportunity that relationship can be rebuilt. Also, still speaking in regards to, to the peace and security of DR Congo, you do have the MONUSCO that also had to pack up and leave and start the evacuation. And that is the UN Peacekeeping Mission having to start the evacuation out of DR Congo, because in one way or another, and this is from the perspective of the region, you ask yourself if they did any peacekeeping within the region. Their presence there did not reduce the conflicts, neither did it do much in terms of protection of the civilians, especially the women and the children. And so you get to see at the end of the day that women and children have gotten to suffer the hardest blow of this instability and insecurity especially in the eastern side of Congo, to the extent that there's, those that have to first rep. And in the documentary that we were listening to, someone did mention that even some regions that have had to receive some sort of help through social services to rehabilitate some of these women, some women, most of them, do not know that even these services do exist within their areas or within their regions, which speaks a lot into the state and the access to some of this information that can help people recoup to be able to then be a productive population that can build a social, economic environment for the country.
All right, Priscilla, let's allow Regan to come in for a moment. Regan, let's talk about some of the observer missions that are present in the Democratic of Congo, just taking a look at how the elections are panning out. The Carter Center, based in the U.S., have said that out of 21 of the 109 centers that they've visited, there are gross irregularities. What is the feeling on the ground at the moment regarding the fairness of this election?
Many organizations, even the Senko, the Catholic organizations, have also said the same thing. They have said that there have been irregularities in this election process. Even that's what some people are expressing. That's what is being said. On my part, as journalist, I also saw some irregularities, like there have been found people who could go to the vote, but they couldn't vote, and there have been some in some parts of the countries where they could found with bullet, with political authority or someone else. So saying that there was irregularities is really quite, we can explain it and say there have been some irregularities in elections.
A big thank you to our two guests, Reagan Mwanaweka, journalist, speaking to us from Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo, so with his feet firmly on the ground regarding the election, and observing from the sidelines of Priscilla Nalwogo, news anchor with the NTV Uganda in Kampala. Appreciate your time.